taking your questions on various career-related topics, such as how to write a CV, how to edit your CV, why is it difficult to find a job after graduating university, how do I write a personal statement for my UCAS application, is this degree program a good choice, workplace issues in the U.S. I did a couple of days ago a discussion with somebody from the U.S. on how to resolve a workplace pay issue. So, whatever your question, work related, I am here to take it. So please, put it down below. I will be live streaming for at least the next hour or so. So if you have a question, please feel free to put it down and I will take them on a first come, first served basis. So if you have a question, anything relating to finding a job, writing a CV, writing a cover letter, interview prepping, anything like that, please put it down and I will pick it up. I'm Brian, Career Advice UK, and I will be taking your questions. Hey Ryan, good to see you. How are you doing today? So anything career related, writing your applications for UCAS, struggling, if you just graduated and you're struggling to find a job after university, please put it down because it is a very kind of competitive market. I'd done some reading yesterday, came across an interesting article, and it does seem to suggest, though some of the information out there seems to kind of contradict it, that says that there probably will be a bit of a hiring rise come 2026, and also too, there may be softening in the entry-level types of jobs. I don't know if that is truly correct. I'd like to get your ideas, thoughts, and feelings on it. What do you think? What is your career prediction for 2026? Since today is the last day, will the UK job market soften and hiring will return? Or is it going to be, still a very kind of competitive where we are probably, start seeing more jobs going back to kind of like the agency end of things and seeing agency jobs being more of the premise and less permanent roles. What do you think? Is it going to be, the same old, where we are going to see, more of the agency and maybe some more public sector, or will it start to begin to soften off? So what do you think? I'd love to get your thoughts. What are your thoughts? Is it going to be a better 2026, or will it be still the same? So put your thoughts down below and let's just share that and have a bit of discussion. Because I think what some of the things that I kind of read, and I don't know if I'm 100% convinced, that it may be a softening for, beginning to soften for UK university graduates and the younger people who are, good question, Spree. Let me give you a written reply to that one. It's just probably a little bit easier to do it quick. I do post clips and the I do post. So what I do for YouTube is, that's a good question. So just so you're aware, I do post under career, Leap Forward Careers. I will post the videos of today, and I will usually goes on within a couple of hours of the live. I'll do two. One, I'll do the full unedited version, and then I will and let me just put that, because I don't always get the characters. So it's under Leap Forward Careers, and I will on YouTube. So that's so what I will do afterwards. It's a good question. It's a fair question. So I will post those on YouTube, the full live, and a clip, usually about 3 to 5 minutes, and I'll pick usually like one topic from the live, and I will kind of just edit around that and do like a 3 to 5 minute clip. Sometimes it's a little longer, sometimes it's shorter, but it does tend to be about 3 to 5 minutes. And so you can also get that, so you can see that. I will have to look into how to, I haven't yet worked out how to do both simultaneously. But it is something for me to look into. So so if you do have, I will take a look in how to do that. How to do that, because I'd like to do it. And I'm just not sure quite yet the logistics of how I can do both TikTok and YouTube at the same time. I'm at the moment right now thinking about how should I explain it? I'm right now thinking about doing additional live streams on Facebook, because I do get a lot of traffic on Facebook, and do a live stream off of Facebook. I'm also, thinking about, but I get some traffic on YouTube, more than I was actually expecting, to be honest with you, and thinking about how do I do a live. Hey, Castro, good question. My question to you is, how much job experience do you have? Because it's going to a certain extent depend on the job experience you have. So, so if you have, and is that job experience really consistent? Or do you have like gaps? Okay, so you don't have, so basically what you're saying, Castro, is that you don't have a lot of job experience, which is fine. The best way then, and I'll put this into the live, best for limited experience or gaps in employment is the functional CV. So on that, so I'm putting that down. Best for limited experience or gaps in employment is the functional CV. And so there's basically two types of CV formats. One is basically what's called a chronological. And what that does is Chronological is really good to showcase your skills, to showcase, you have a progressive and responsibility, and to really show what you have done. And so it's really good to show this increase in responsibility. But what it also does too, the drawback on the functional is because you're using a lot of dates and stuff, it really draws attention. Hey, Big Diamond Flora, how are you? It calls attention to two things. It calls attention to limited experience. It calls attention to gaps. So the way you get around that is this. And the way you get around it is by using what, like I put in there. It's a functional CV. And when a functional CV does this, it really showcases your skills as it relates to the job description, and it de-emphasizes your job history, and it helps to then de-emphasize any gaps. But again, if you do have gaps or limited experience, it's always going to be picked up on the interview. And hey, thanks, Black Chocolate, for the hand heart. That's really nice. Very much appreciated. So yeah, so that is very much appreciated. So it is so what it is at that point is, so it de-emphasizes, it allows you to really focus on your skills. And so what it does allow you then to focus on your skills. It allows you to, de-emphasize any gaps. And so what it's really good for people who have very kind of a limited career history, very sporadic career history, gaps, or maybe you have done, something here, something there, and you've kind of bounced around. So it's really good. It draws away from that. And so it's really important, when you're applying for jobs, to really focus on the skills. And that's where it seems to be a little bit of a trend right now, is there's a bit of a trend to focus on skills. Now, the question really becomes is, how do you do that when you really don't have paid work experience? And what it does is, so the way you get around not having any really paid experience is this. You need to draw on your previous skills. So you've said you've done volunteering. So take a look at the skills you've developed from volunteering. Take a look at the skills that you developed from any education, any skills that you have developed from extracurricular activities, things that you may have done. But what you really need to be able to do is think about the skills that you have as it relates to that job description. List that in your CV as the skills on a functional CV. So when you're doing your functional CV, you draw on those skills, but you really need to think about, if you get into an interview situation, all right, are you going to be able to evidence that? Are you going to be able to say to them, I did this, and this is what the results were. This is what, I did. This is my results from doing this. If it is just to kind of put in because you think, well, I did this once, or you try to overemphasize it, and kind of maybe mislead them on it, or maybe just kind of overstate it, it's going to come out. In all honesty, it's going to come out. It's going to probably come out. You may get the job offer, but then when you're asked to perform it and you're not performing at the level you presented in the interview, it will start getting flagged. So really be very cautious about any experience that you use from volunteering, any experiences you use from school. Make sure it's accurate. Make sure you can be very clear on what you have done. And make sure it aligns with the job description. So, take that, use the chronological functional CV to really help. And there is a whole slew of them. You just have to do a search and just say, find me a functional CV template. And so, yes. So what you'll need to do is basically ask yourself the question, does it really work? If it does, if you can really sit there and say, I have done it, I know I can do this, and I, maybe led a couple projects in school, volunteering. I've dealt with customers. I know how to deal with difficult customers. Great. Make sure you can document, you can provide an experience, an example so they know. Now, when you start to apply, the other thing you really just have to realize too is when you're applying for entry-level jobs, the recruiter knows that. They know you don't have a lot of experience. They know that you probably, if you are, and so they will know that you are applying for just a very kind of basic, you're coming in very entry level. So they know you don't really have a lot of skills. So, you don't need to run from it. Just be very brutally honest, and try your best to match the experiences. You can even try to cover it a bit in the, in your cover letter to them, stating, that you are really just beginning your career journey. You have not developed a lot of work experience, but you do have these types of experiences that relates very closely. You can sit there and say, you asked for this. I've done this. You asked for this. I've done it kind of like in a table format, and just pick because when you do a cover letter, it is, only about a page that you need to write. And so you can't really get, go through the whole job description line by line and saying this is how I meet each one. Just pick some of the main ones that really relate to the role. And these would be the essential job ones, and show how you meet the essential job characteristics. And even if it is, let's say they have 7, you can only fit in 2 or 3, that's fine. And just kind of make a note, just say, for the sake of brevity, I will just cover 2 of the 7 primary characteristics that you asked for this job, just to demonstrate that I do meet the requirements. And so you can do that. They're fine. They know it. And it does show that you do have some of the skills that they require, so they get interested, and it may be enough to really get there. But again, it's when you are applying, it's very important to be very communicative and very kind of to the point, and not try to overinflate your CV if you have very little experience. If you have very little experience, go for a month. Go for 1 page. If you do have a couple years experience, or like 2 or 3 jobs, you probably could do up to 1.5 pages or 2. But 2 is really kind of max. Very good question. So, any other questions on CVs? That was a very good question. If you do have a question, please feel free to put it down. If you are really, if you have applied, if you have applied to jobs and you're sending out CV after CV, and you're just getting no response, please put it down and, and ask, because I will pick it up. I will pick it up from you, whatever your question may be. So I put up a question for kind of a prediction for 2026. Will you think that, hiring soften and the market will soften and hiring will start to begin to return to normal? What I'm kind of reading, it seems like there are two kind of almost competing but similar points. One says that it's going to be a very kind of slow, kind of gradual process that's going to take a while for hiring to return. Others are saying that it is beginning to soften and that we'll see a lot of hiring in the kind of the entry level and kind of the, not the management or technical, but kind of that in between where you do need, kind of like senior type of roles, like senior admin type of roles. And this would be primarily in, especially in medium, which is 250 to 500, and larger companies, which is 1,000 to 499 employees. But it may be, hey, well, thank you for the like, but it may be one of these situations where the larger employers and things like energy and stuff may not be doing a lot of hiring. And again, I always preface that on location, because location will be one that really has a massive impact on hiring. And so if you have a thought on that, I would love to hear what is that. Also, too, what is, the impact of AI? Because I did a interesting, so what I'm going to ask is the question, what are your thoughts on AI in the job market? And so I read an interesting article yesterday about interviews being done by AI bots. And what the article was saying, that candidates actually prefer to be interviewed by the AI bot over a real human. And they preferred it, and that the AI was good at picking the right candidate. However, what the article did go on to say was they felt as though that the AI, that there was a limitation to it, that the AI may pick the safer candidate, and which may not always be the best one, because it may, pick somebody who's a safe choice versus somebody that may be probably better suited for the job, because they may have, the risk-taking, ability where it's needed. And it doesn't pick that. And it also found out, especially for senior roles, senior management roles, that it wasn't as good because of lateral thinking, and it may not be the most predictable. So what it does seem to suggest to me, in my opinion, is that AI is making inroads into hiring, but there are still, again, as I feel, limitations on AI in the way of making mistakes and not being, it's there, kind of there, but not quite. And so it is one of these situations where AI comes in, but it is not, something that we really need to worry a lot about at this stage, because really this is still kind of the testing phase. They've tested AI bots on interviews, seeing what people's responses are, how does it respond. and then picking it up and seeing, and doing a bit of analysis. And again, there is still some limitations when it comes to senior managers, and also, opting for the safer candidate when there may be a better suited candidate, which may mean, again, there are, from a UK kind of data protection equality perspective, that it may be overlooking suitable candidates who have protected characteristics. And again, as we talk about ICO draft guidance, that means ICO draft guidance on the use of AI and automation is that there should be human intervention to oversee, to ensure that things like that are not being missed. So be interested in hearing if anyone has any thoughts. So let's ask a couple more questions. Are there any recent university graduates who have struggled to find a job after graduation? So is there anyone out there who just recently graduated and are struggling to find their first job after graduation? Because it is one that I do really find that a lot of people do ask about, and I do find that it is a very kind of prominent question. It's one that gets asked a lot at various times. I know right now we have had unis just break and are on the break right now. So anybody who graduated, finished their degree in December, will now be out there looking for a job. And so be interesting to hear if anyone is really struggling, especially university graduates. So, and it is one of these things that does really kind of come up from time to time. So again, if there is really someone with a question or is struggling to find a job after graduation, please put it down. Let's get that solved, because there are. Hey, Nikki, good to see you, and Alina and Mac and R&R. Good to see everyone, and thank you for joining. So if you are, thank you for the likes, Nikki. So if you are just a recent university graduate and struggling, or have you, been sending out CVs without a reply, because it is one of these things that also has been happening a lot. I don't do any hiring, I don't do any sponsorship hiring or anything, just career advice. So if you have a question on finding, I'm able to pick that up, but I don't do any. Take a look at my name, and that will give you an indication, JN, of where I'm located. So, yes, so if you've been sending out CVs without a reply, there is a reason. So there is a reason. And so if you are struggling and you are really sending out CVs but no reply, please put your comments down below, your question, your experience down below, and I'll pick it up, because there is a reason why it's going, and it's usually very simple fix. And when I've had people who've come in with their CV issues and asked, giving them a solution, they went off and tried it, and they're back like 2 weeks that state, you know what, I've tried it, and I've tried it and it has worked. I got a job offer, I got an interview. So please feel free, if you're sending off CVs but not getting anything in return, to mention it, and I will pick it up. So if you are, struggling, please, feel free to get it, because that's what I'm here for. Or, if you have an upcoming interview and worry you will go blank, put it into the comments. So if you are, worrying about, if you have an upcoming interview and you're worrying that you're going to freeze, you need maybe some ideas, tips, or suggestions, feel free to put that down below, because I do get that from time to time. Likewise, too, if you do have an upcoming interview, and you're wondering about how to answer difficult questions, and then it into the comments. So if you have an upcoming interview and you're really worrying about questions, the questions you may be asked, how to prepare for those, put those down below, especially like questions like, tell me something about yourself. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Why should we hire you? Put those down below, because let's be honest, with questions, there is no right, there is no wrong answer. It is all dependent on a couple things. The context of the situation, meaning that how do you answer those questions? What is the job about? Who's interviewing you? Who is your competition? What sector, what job is it for? And so you really need to think about those types of things when you're coming about how to answer questions, because there is no right answer, there's no wrong answer. It is all areas of gray, and it's learning to know how to structure your response is the best way. Knowing how to structure your response and how to respond to interview questions is the best way, because there are several ways to respond to a question in an interview. And so if you do have a question, feel free to put it down below, and I will pick it up for you and answer it on a first come, first serve basis. If you do join me on a regular basis and you are looking for some benefit from joining, because let's be honest, who isn't? There's a couple things, there is the one point heart me you can send, and that lets, it makes you a fan, and then that fan, gets you hey, Alina, good to see you. It gets you, shout outs when you come in. It gets you priority if you do ask a question. And also, too, if there are other things, such as, you come in and you want a bit more, there is a, subscription, but TikTok calls you super fans, which I don't totally understand. And so there's a basic, standard, and deluxe. The basic is all about access, so you get access to Discord community, you get access to videos that are not available to everyone else. And again, you do get, the access when you come in, shout outs and stuff. The other, oh, well, thank you for the heart me, Alexandra. Oh, that's so amazing. Thank you. And so you get the shout out. The other thing you get is at the standard when I do the guest spot, and I won't go through a lot with it now because we're still quite a ways. But if we start getting closer to it, then I will. I do run guest spots on a point basis. And once we get closer, I will, it's at 50, a guest spot is at 1,500 points. And we're only at 100, so we're about 1,400 away, not even about 10%, not quite 10% there to the guest spot. I will then will give the option to any standard or deluxe members for a shot. Anything else is then open to the rest. At the deluxe, you get basic and standard plus. You do get 2 hours of my time each month to help you with career-related topics. This can include, provided we can agree on time and platform, practicing interview questions. So that's kind of how you get some benefit from joining the lives. Now, I do also have one more, and well, that's amazing, Martinez. Thank you. Oh, that's amazing. I'm glad. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing. I'm glad. Congratulations. That is amazing. Thank you. No problem. That's what I'm here for. And that is the purpose of this whole life clinic, is to help people like yourself who are motivated but may feel a bit stuck and not sure how to unstick themselves from that situation. And so how to unstick yourself. And so that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that and letting me know. That's great. Very proud and very happy for you. So yes, so again, it does show that tips around here do help, because we can see one right here. Who came in a few days ago and did get asked a few questions and actually wound up getting the job. And that's really amazing. It makes me feel good. So if you do have questions, please feel free to share it. Ask your questions. It is, feel free to ask your questions. And happy to take any questions that you may have regarding interviews, CV writing, CV editing, best type of CV to use. Should you put pictures into your CV, to help? Should you use kind of a artsy, spend a lot of time and investment in a very fancy CV template? Interviews, how do you prepare for an interview? What questions to expect? Where do you look for your interviews? And really, take a look. And where do you get those, those tips and advice? If you do have questions about workplace situations, like we spent a lot of time on workplace a couple days ago, more than happy to take your workplace related questions. Do you have issues with, an employer or with pay? Again, put that down. Do you feel like you're being bullied at work? again, put that down, and we can talk about that and what you can do to kind of resolve that for yourself. What about if you are feeling, are you feeling as though maybe, you know, um, you're struggling, because you got an upcoming interview, but you go blank and you don't know how to stop it or how to prevent. Again, feel free to ask those questions because that's what I'm here for, to help you through that. What else, is it that you are, struggling with? What is it, that it's difficult? Again, can talk. I haven't for a while yet. One of the questions I do get, but it's been a really long time, is how do I get, negotiate pay for starting pay, or how do I handle competing offers? Which ones do I take? It is all, it is very much. Ooh, thank you, Jody. Thank you for the heart me. Oh, and you're awesome. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. Oh, that is so nice. Thank you so much. That is so much. Thank you so much, Jody. Thank you so very much. So yes, so take, take a bit, it is a, so if you do, hey, thank you so much, Jody, very much appreciated. So if you do have questions, like I say, put it down. Like I said, talk about, I haven't for a long time, like I said, talked about negotiating pay. But if you do have negotiating pay, there are ways around it, especially in a very competitive market. And one of the tips I can give you, and it is a risky one, but it is one way to get more pay, is asking for your job to be reassessed, especially if you feel as though you're doing and you're working at a higher level than what your job description states. Because if you are, then what you really need to do is maybe potentially ask for a reevaluation if you roll. Sometimes when that happens, there's always a risk of you may actually find out that you get downgraded. But again, before you do that, it's always important to get some advice on it and what are the risks for it, because this is just what I'm giving general advice, and it's not specific to your situation. So what I would really say to you is this: it is one thing that you can do. You can easily, ask for a reevaluation, but again, there's always a risk that you get downgraded or you're not approved, and so it starts to get really kind of murky at that area, because if you think you are working and they say you're not, then really the only other thing you could potentially do is look at either legal, or if you have a union, going down the grievance route. And that is, again, there's not always a definitive outcome, but there is always that option to get more pay without really having to negotiate. Is to ask for a reevaluation with the understanding that it can be very risky, and it's a good idea to get advice, because what I'm just giving you is, hey, Stephanie, how are you? It's just very generic. Hey, Sugar, good to see you. So if you do have a good, I'm glad to hear that, Stephanie. Happy New Year's. It's going to be, in a couple of hours, New Year's. I'm doing good. Good to hear that. Hey, genuine guy, thanks for stopping by. So if you're just joining, you do like the feed, please like, please share, and please follow, because when you do follow, it keeps you up to date with my content and live streams. And it also to, like I say, if you do like the feed, please like, please share, please follow. And if you do feel inclined, but don't feel so you have to, please send gifts, because it really does help me to know what people like, what is resonating well with people. It helps me to kind of steer the conversation. And today it also, helps me to plan my future content. So again, if I know something really resonates, I am probably more likely to do it with future content, and helps me to plan a bit of future discussions. And so again, as we're coming down to the end of 2028, Joe, good to see you. As we're coming down of 2025 and about to go into 2026, I've asked the kind of question, throughout this live stream is, do you have any career predictions? Do you think the UK job market will soften, or are we going to still see it remaining competitive? And my kind of own personal opinion is that I think it's still going to be at least competitive for the next couple of months. And it will be interesting to see, because what we are going to in January, we're going to enter into Q4 of 2025-2026 financial year. And what we're going to start to see is organizations preparing for 2026 and making plans to hire, planning their budgets and stuff. And so what we will sometimes start to see, especially like February, March's time, as businesses prepare to end their financial year, some will start to do a bit of hiring, kind of from, end of February through kind of like April, May, into the new, into Q1 of 2026, 2027. Hey, Betty and Tim, good to see you. Frogs Against Tyranny, nice to see you too. So it will mean that I think going forward, it will be, I think the next couple of months will be very predicative of where things are going to go. And right now, what I understand, most of the hiring is kind of happening through agencies and not as much as the permanent roles. So you may, if you are looking and you do have a bit of job experience, then don't discount agency work, because it is probably for at least the next couple of months, if not longer, going to be, if you want to become a hedge fund manager, that is really kind of competitive. You would need a couple routes. You would need to typically, if you come in, you need to really graduate from a top university with a degree in finance, accounting, or in law, and would be probably the three areas to look at. You would have to. Okay, so you might be able to get into it, because I do believe with that is, because sometimes econ may work. You would need again, you would need to contact the FCA with them to see if you would probably qualify or not, and also to I would say check with the FCA to see if you are if you are able with a econ. I think you are, and I think probably you would need to go on to do your like MBA in either like finance or another area. Again, try to get yourself into internships, as a hedge fund, working for a hedge fund, working with hedge fund managers. And also too, you would need to become a, chartered financial analyst, or other certifications. And you need to be very, very strong in kind of your quantitative and math skills. I mean, if you're doing a hedge fund, you're working with FCA, you are working with money, and anyone that does kind of working with money, you do need to be oversight by financial conduct authority, because they're the ones that really do oversight into it. And again, you may or may not, but they need to be registered with them, or at least ensure that you do meet the requirements. And again, make sure you are also registered with the appropriate bodies, chartered institute with them. I would say, for me, and so I would say with those would be the next ones. And again, really would think, yes, I would say if you want to get the job in the first place, what you really need to do right now in uni is really focus on getting internships. And that is really the key. And that is really the key to do that, is focus on the internship, and focus on, and again, how do you do that? Again, you need to be really solid with grades. Do really good in your coursework. Are you using the same type of information when you're applying to 100 internships? Or are you tailoring each application to each tailoring the information to each application? Because it is very competitive. Okay, good. That is. Are you using AI to write it? To write your applications, or relying heavily on AI to write it? Good. Good, because that would be the other one. I think what it is then is what's happening is you're applying to, it's very competitive. And I'll be honest with you, when I did my law degree, and was kind of in a kind of very economic uncertain time when I did it, and I applied for a lot of training contracts, got one offer. I didn't practice. I went kind of the non-legal afterwards, and I had that training contract pulled. So I just decided, because of the economic conditions at the time, to decide not to go forward with it. So at that time, I went more down the non-practicing route, which is I worked basically in IT, and now I work in kind of more public sector contract management, and make pretty much about the same I would have if I was practicing. So it's not a massive loss. So I haven't really lost out. It's just the fact that I decided to go down the non-practicing route because it was. So yeah, so I would say, and it may be that, for you, again, if you're trying to apply to, let's say, distressed debt, hedge funds, maybe you just need to kind of spread it out a bit more and trying different areas. Not focus on one area very specifically as hedge funds, but maybe, distressed debt, maybe private equity, and trying to go into different similar areas. So, hedge fund, distressed debt, private equity, and just kind of start to look at, and start thinking about what is similar to your goal of. Yep. And I think it's just trying to, and it's just being, it's going to be, and it's just going to be resilience. You're just going to have to keep on applying and applying. And I would say to you is, keep on applying, and just keep on trying. It will probably break for you. Yeah, it is. It's kind of the, sign of the times. I would say, continue applying, try to keep your options open, and focus on the area that you think you have the most chance in, and then kind of maybe do it like 70, 20, 10, 70% on the area that you think you have the best chance at. Spend 20% of the time that maybe is very similar to what you're applying to, and then spend about 10% of your time maybe applying to different areas that is a bit unrelated, but this is strictly my opinion. I would probably say the best ones would be Oxford, Cambridge, UCL, would be the top three. And also I would look at King's College in LSE, would be kind of like the top five. London School of Economics would probably be the top five that I would say the best ones. That's strictly my opinion, So yeah, LSE is probably, when it comes to, it is. Economics is basically it's a kind of applied math. It is a math degree, but it is basically applied mathematics. It's not the theoretical. It's like physics in a way, many ways. Econ's like physics. Both are applied mathematics degrees that really doesn't really draw on the theoretical math. Instead, it takes economic theory and applies it to mathematic models, like physics does. And so it is basically a math degree in social sciences. And I think with LSE, I think you are very well positioned. Oh, wow. Yeah, Harvard can be extremely expensive. In Boston, it's not the cheapest area to live either, so it's kind of the double whammy. It's not the cheapest area. Did Harvard actually offer you like a scholarship or anything? to attend, because it's a bit odd. Okay, yeah, that's what I kind of thought. Because I do know that they have an extensive and kind of, at least from what I understand, they have a kind of a very generous financial aid packages that they offer most students. But again, it's mostly it is mostly U.S. based. Usually, when you're U.S. based, it can be quite lucrative. Hey, Isaac. Princeton is also a nice area. So you're looking to find a job, huh, Isaac? Give me a bit more information. Princeton is also really good. Very good. Very good school. It's one of the tops. It's Ivy League, I believe. Princeton is Ivy. And so that's the kind of the creme de la creme of U.S. schools. And if you go pretty much U.S. Ivy, it pretty much writes your own, like the UK Russell groups. It is very much, it will basically write your ticket anywhere. Oh, darn. That's sorry to hear. That must be so aggravating, but it does show that you are very competitive, that you do have the background. If you're just, one seat away, and you made it to the final round, it really means that you do have the skills available. And it may have been, if it was another group, another pool of candidates, you may have actually, got it. Hey, Jordan. And you may have got it. So I would use that as it's a confirmation. Oh, that must be, it must really hurt to really just lose by one seat, and to be that close. But again, I would just say keep on, because it does say to you, you're on the right path. And again, if it was a different mix, of candidates, you may have got it. So it's one of those things that, for me, it's, I've had those where you're just so close. No, I can understand that. And that's under UK Equality Act. It can be, that can be if two are equal, then they can, hey, it's going good, Jordan. It can be given to the one where they're trying to basically increase some of their diversity in their hiring. And so it is really kind of disappointing. So I would just say, don't be discouraged. Just keep on. Yeah, I'm up. I always get up at this time to do kind of like the live streams. It it shows that it's not always, it is, things are not always as they seem. And I think yeah, so I think it shows that sometimes it's not always as it seems. And I wouldn't, like I said, yeah, I usually go to bed about 8, by 3, so I can get the dogs out and get ready for the live. So yeah, so if anyone has Okay. Um, yeah, I'm UK based. I've worked UK. I got many years here. I would always would say I would say right now focus on your degree. In my opinion, I would always say, Isaac, focus on your degree because that will be the thing that kind of gets you through. Um, so if you, I would say, if you're, I would say, again, always focus on the degree. It will be the thing that you'll kind of fall upon, and work on getting, if you're in IT, really work on getting your certifications, showing that you can do multiple programming languages, and in doing coding. I would say if you can do a few coding projects, that really won't pull you from your degree, and try to do it, but do it in a very kind of controlled way to manage your time. You know, figure how much time you need to dedicate to your university, your programming and learning codes, and then what time do you have left over to do projects? Because I think coding projects are good. You can put those onto your CV, but you do also have to be kind of conscious, because if it pulls you away and you wind up with no degree, then the degree is kind of like your card in a way to, say I graduate from this university with like a 2-1 or full honors. Um, it is. I would disagree with you, Jordan. I think, higher education is good because it teaches you a lot of skills. It teaches you how to critically think, how to express yourself, both in writing and verbally. It teaches you how to look at an issue from multiple angles. It gives you confidence. It teaches you to problem solve. It develops leadership. Hey, no problem, Isaac. It teaches you leadership. It teaches you how to work independently and also as part of the team. And those things is a lot harder to learn without the degree, because you learn this from interaction. It asks you how to think about things from a critical standpoint, and I think the investment is worth it. I think in this country, in the UK, I think university education is part of, I think, the class warfare argument, treating those who graduate as academic elitists, which I would disagree with. I think that, there shouldn't be a push to get people out of university. I've watched and seen and worked with apprenticeships, and I know apprenticeships can be as competitive, if not more competitive, than applying to a Russell Group University like Oxford or Cambridge. It can be that very competitive for the limited apprenticeships. And I've seen, like with certain apprenticeships, like in healthcare, um, those who apply tend to be those the ones who get, let's say, a healthcare degree program apprenticeship tends to be those who are um, already working, or for the employer, or already have a level 2 or level 3 done a level 2 or level 3 apprenticeship. And for somebody who just comes off the street, says, hey, I want to apply for this degree program, and they don't understand the kind of competition that they're facing and who is probably going to be the most likely candidate, is very much at a disadvantage. And usually, if you do have a position open for an apprenticeship, you'll get literally hundreds of applications and maybe 1 or 2 spots. And it is a very kind of competitive. And I don't, in my opinion, I don't see apprenticeships as always being the the kind of the golden calf, if you want to say, this really kind of um, really rich type of things. Yeah, many of them have. Many have gone and started own businesses. So, um, and I don't see billionaires and stuff as being really relevant to the whole higher education thing. So, um, if you take like Zuckerberg, he went. I don't believe he graduated, but from Harvard, but he did attend, and he learned what he learned and used it to start his own business. Most will, again, like Steve Jobs, again, if we're talking about Microsoft, Bill Gates. Bill Gates, again, went Harvard and again took off, learned and studied, and then decided to start his own business. So, again, some of them do go higher education. They take what they learn and then use it to start their own businesses. So I don't see the point. And the fact they're billionaires just shows that the education did really help when they were there. So yeah. So if you are just joining and you do please please share, and please follow. And if you do feel inclined, please think it's because it really does help me to know what's resonating with people, what is really helping you along the way. And it also helps me to plan my content. But again, like I always say, don't feel so you have to send it. It just really helps me to know what is helping people along the way. And so if you do have a question, please feel free to put it down below, and I will pick it up on a first come and first serve basis. If you do have questions, and today's been a very good. Hey, Jimbo, good to hear, good to see you. Day. So we're kind of beginning to wind down, the last, 7 minutes or so. So again, so again, so if you do have a question, please put it down below. What I do say is I will be back tomorrow, 4 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, taking your questions. Taking your questions regarding careers. And yes, tomorrow is New Year's Day, and it doesn't matter. I will still be here. New Year's Day, very early. So if you do have a question, hey, Maury, feel free to put it down. I don't necessarily need to cut off once the timer does, but hey, Tyre. But again, if you do have a question, I'll pick it up, and if I do run over, that's fine. So yes, today it's been very good. We spent a lot of time talking about CV format, especially using the difference between a difference between a functional and chronological CV. Starting to talk about a bit of education and education, the need of education, and also preparing for graduation. And again, very good tips to help people along the way, in how to prepare and how to write your CV, how to prepare, looking for jobs, and really focusing on that. So if you do have a question, like I said, feel free to put it down. I got just under 5 minutes here before the timer runs out. Happy to pick up, like I say, question. Happy to pick up questions from you. I don't necessarily need to, go at right after it ends, but more than happy to, pick up a question if needed, and to answer, give you the answer you need before things end. So yeah, so if you do have a quick question, and tomorrow again would be questions on CVs, cover letters, anything kind of career related, workplace issues, and more. And so more than happy to pick up those types of questions. Happy to pick those up. And so if you have a question, please let me know and I will pick it up. Otherwise, like I say, once the timer runs down, I will end and be back tomorrow, New Year's Day, at 4 a.m. Greenwich Median Time to take your questions again. And I will take it. There we go. So if you do have a question, like I said, I will ask, pick it up from you. And then I will, like I said, if the timer goes beyond, I'm more than happy to run it past. So if you have things like on CVs, cover letters, how to edit your CV, what to put on your CV, how do you get your CV to align with a job description, interview questions like, how do I answer this type of question, like tell me something about yourself, how do I stop from getting nervous, how do I prepare for an interview? Again, those types of questions, more than happy to kind of pick those up. Hey, user 4019, more than happy to pick them up and answer them for you. If you do have a quick question, anything, anything career related, so workplace issues, pay related issues, just trying to think, university, applying for, anything related, more than happy, more than happy to take a question or two from you before needing to finish off. And we're beginning to kind of go into the final minutes. So remember, I will be back 1st of December, 1st of January at 4 a.m. Greenwich Median Time. Taking your questions and taking your questions. So if you have a quick question, I will take it. Otherwise, what I'm going to do right now, as we come down to the final seconds, just remember to set a reminder, and I will be back tomorrow, 4 a.m. Greenwich Median Time, taking your career-related questions. Thank you, everyone, for the gifts, the likes, the shares, the follows, and I will see you back tomorrow.